Welcome, and thank you for taking the time to view this presentation to support the publication of a new CREST guide called Establishing an Effective Law Enforcement Cybercrime Unit. My name is Greg Francis. I possess over 28 years experience within the criminal justice system as both a serious crime investigator and also as a lay magistrate. My criminal justice career started at quite a young age. I was 28 years old, conducted public duties as a lay magistrate in the East End of London. My law enforcement career began 3 years later. After a period there, quite a long period there, approximately 7 years, I moved into the Serious Organised Crime Agency in the UK and changed my trajectory in regards to investigations and joined the electronic crime team, effectively the cybercrime unit at what was now called SOCA, Serious Organised Crime Agency. I conducted a number of investigations there, and then SOCA was subsumed into the National Crime Agency, and it's at that stage that I joined the National Cybercrime Unit as a investigator, and then quite quickly into a role as a prevention officer, cybercrime prevention officer. My interest in cybercrime prevention was stimulated really by the environment in the National Cybercrime Unit at the NCA. The focus of the unit and of the agency was on primarily cyber-dependent crime, effectively on those who were technically able to develop and utilize criminal tools and techniques. It was effectively upstream disruption, looking at who was developing the malware and the other associated tools and techniques used in cybercrime. But my alarm bell started ringing when we were looking at this particular cadre of individuals, how many of them that I found myself arresting were very young. And I mean invariably under 21 years old. And they were committing some serious offences. And after working such a long time in serious crime, I was somewhat perplexed by this unique dynamic of national law enforcement effectively arresting juveniles. And in interacting and interviewing and going through the normal processes of arrest and prosecution, it was clear that these particular individuals that I was arresting were very different to those I'd arrested before and also seen in court who had committed serious crime. So I took the opportunity, when asked to help develop a template for cybercrime offender prevention, I took the opportunity to debrief as many as possible. And when I say debrief, it was effectively an conversations with a purpose. It wasn't to try and extract more intelligence. It was more to find out what they were like, what their background were. There were more behavioural debriefs than conventional law enforcement debriefs, because the rationale was, let's try and identify exactly how these individuals got involved in such serious crime, and then see if there's any commonalities, any traits, any characteristics, anything that they all did or didn't do, and try and map a pathway into cybercrime to enable us to identify interventions and initiatives that could possibly interdict at some stage as they moved from criminal interest to serious cybercrime. And one of the key findings after speaking to quite a number of these individuals were that they invariably were all into gaming, which is not a problem on its own, but they were particularly focused on the modifications and the cheats that went on in gaming, and specifically how they were done. How were you able to modify the game to enable you the characters or the game to do something it wasn't originally programmed to do? And when they went on their journey to find out about this, they found themselves on forums, talking about the back end of technology, talking about the programming, the scripts, the coding, all those elements, and immediately had an aptitude for not just understanding it, but interpreting it and progressing it. And that became a lure and a stimulus for them to do more. And very quickly, they found themselves immersed in a world in which they were not only comfortable, but also had quite a profile within there pretty quickly. There was one of the things that fell out of the interviews was that there was an acute disconnect from online social responsibility, the legislation that governed the internet, and also from those charged with regulating their behaviour, parents, teachers, and others around them, who effectively had no idea what they were doing once they were working or interacting online in a technical way, whether it was coding, developing their own code, whether it was just working and building their own networks. No one could regulate their behavior, and that empowered them and gave them a real great sense of self-esteem, community, and unfortunately also the opportunity to undertake activities that cross the line. So on the back of those interviews, a cyber criminal career pathway was established and utilised to help focus the portfolio of initiatives and interventions developed by the National Cybercrime Unit Prevention Team. So that's my background, and that's effectively the way that I got involved in cybercrime offender prevention. I should add now I run my own consultancy, and I am the senior advisor to the Dutch National Police high-tech crime unit, and I'm currently helping them establish their own cyber prevention team, and also to develop initiatives and interventions to impact not just domestically but also through other agencies such as Europol. So for CMAG and for CREST, the report that I drafted, it was really with emphasis on bolting on offender prevention to a cybercrime unit. My colleague and friend who drafted the cybercrime unit report built this in, the offender prevention part, in recognition of how vital it was in the approach that we were advocating for cybercrime teams and units, and how they could operate fairly effectively in any jurisdiction. So the report outlines how to design, develop and deploy a cybercrime prevention program as a constituent part of the cyber maturity assessment global ecosystem proposed by CREST. And just to reiterate, it's proposed to help build an ecosystem that will allow enhancements in cybersecurity capability, capacity and consistency in Asian and African markets. It's funded by the Gates Project, and it's a really key initiative that is attempting to build digital financial services for these evolving countries. It's important to state from the outset that the proposal that was drafted is not prescriptive. It aims to act as an off-the-shelf guide for establishing cybercrime prevention. It provides mechanisms for tackling the rising phenomenon of youth cybercrime, and also on imposing a greater law enforcement presence on the more deviant aspects of the World Wide Web. The report highlights the growth of the availability of criminal tools and the normalization of malware as a service, necessitating prevention for all forms of cybercrime. The United Kingdom and the Netherlands are unarguably, I should say, at the vanguard of cybercrime offender prevention activity globally. And so the report uses models and tools and techniques from primarily those two countries. The guidance begins with a brief overview of cybercrime, its impact on the expanding African and Asian economies, and the mechanism in place to combat it. An explanation of what is cybercrime prevention is provided by detailing the historic crime prevention premise upon which it was founded, and how that manifests in contemporary approaches to combating cybercrime. The question why cybercrime prevention is answered with particular reference to types of offending and their categorization in regard to the level of societal harm and impact. Cybercrime prevention and the disproportionate number of younger offenders in this space, which I mentioned before, is highlighted, and the concerns globally about this rising phenomenon are impressed. The 4D approach, deter, divert, degrade and disrupt, is explained. In a nutshell, it aims to deter and divert those interested and entering cybercrime, degrade and disrupt those commercializing and committed to cybercrime. It's a two-pronged approach developed through my experiences in both the UK and the Netherlands, and it's effectively to try and have an impact on all levels of cybercrime, not just the top tier. A legislative, judicial and executive structure is advocated for implementing cybercrime prevention through a national cybersecurity strategy, building in education and in employment, and also public-facing roles in police cybercrime units. The metric and measurements chapter encapsulates some of the research that's been done around cybercrime offender prevention and also the effectiveness of the initiatives and where the value of the of undertaking this particular strand of cybercrime enforcement in a focused way. It measures the ability of academics to be directly engaged with law enforcement right from the onset to help determine the effectiveness and the efficacy of these, in many respects, new interventions and initiatives that are being developed. The final chapter sees the concept of digital responsibility defined and expanded. Central prevention themes such as self-policing, corporate social responsibility, and the importance of public-private sector collaboration for achieving a credible and sustainable model for cybercrime prevention are impressed. To summarise, a cybercrime prevention strategy offers a necessary and holistic approach to supplementing conventional law enforcement approaches to addressing cybercrime. Understanding of cultural and socio-economic factors alongside insight into the offender's motivations and characteristics are significant in building a sustainable, low-resource, high-impact cybercrime prevention program. I hope that you found the presentation interesting. It is a skim of quite a comprehensive document, but hopefully giving you a flavour of the importance of considering this as a component part, cybercrime offender prevention as a component part of any cybercrime unit or national strategy that you may be considering in your respective countries and institutions. Thanks for your time. Greg Francis.